Hello and welcome to Making Waves, a series of short online chats with people who, through their work, help shape and lead the environmental movement here in Ireland. In Making Waves, we explore the diverse, energetic, and sometimes revolutionary ways in which the greatest environmental issues affecting our oceans and the wider world are tackled. In this series, we focus on research, policy, agriculture, activism, and community engagement. First up, it's Aoife Deane. Aoife has been communicating to the public about science for 15 years. She is currently the Communications and Public Engagement Manager with the MaREI Institute, which is the SFI's Centre for Research and Innovation in the areas of energy, climate and the marine. What are you most excited about in terms of what's coming downstream in the area of ocean research and sustainability?
Yes, Colm. I suppose for me, there's great developments in technologies, and for us that would be things like offshore wind and wave. Some exciting, I suppose, pilots and prototypes being tested at the moment. Bioenergy, smart farming. Or green farming, and we would be working with lots of different stakeholders in that. But for me, it's not actually the developments in technology that I find, I suppose, most exciting or most hopeful for the future. It's actually the progression towards transdisciplinary and engaged research. So, lots of different disciplines and lots of different stakeholders working together to address the major societal challenges, like climate change and ocean degradation and things like that, and then to co-create solutions. So I guess years ago academics would have worked more independently or in silos, and the model of the SFI research centres, which we're one of, is to bring all the expertise together from lots of different disciplines, including social sciences, engineering, all of the sciences, and environmental science included in that. Bring all of those aspects together with marine lawyers for things like marine spatial planning and so on, and I suppose co-create the solutions, as I said. Now that also includes, and this is the exciting part of my work in recent years, working directly with communities on their journeys and supporting community-led initiatives. So initially my role would have been very much communicating outwards. If we say, when I started my career maybe 15 years ago, it was a dissemination type of role and outreach, going out to schools and doing talks, and it was kind of more of a one-way thing. But I suppose over the years we've progressed towards this this model of engagement where it's definitely about two-way dialogue and debate and discussion, and then supporting different stakeholders, but particularly we're interested in supporting communities on their journeys towards tackling, climate change or coastal issues that they're facing, including, the work around marine litter. The fact that we're starting to work with activists, the fact that we're starting to talk to NGOs. So as I say, that academia isn't working in a silo anymore, and that we're moving towards this model where we have government, education, industry and society working together. The model is called the Quadruple Helix model, and for me that's definitely the most exciting development, because there's no way that any technological solution is going to solve our problems. It's really about bringing the people on board.
I was struck there by what you said about transdiscipline, and that's new, isn't it? Because before, even in the area of sustainability, there was a situation where there'd be a problem and then there's an engineering fix to it, and everybody gets engineering excited and they go out and it's fluid mechanics and they make a big thing in the middle of the ocean and it makes energy where there was no energy before, but then it might have knock-on effects. Whereas now in your area it's more complex, it's a bit of a pain, but a good pain. You have to consult with lots of people, and that is the essence now of modern sustainability, isn't it?
That's absolutely it. And I mean, I think before it was trial and error. People would, develop a technology and think about all the engineering issues and problems with it, and then throw it out there, and then realize there was, not only technological problems, but issues with acceptance within a community. Social acceptance is obviously a huge issue. But also, if we're thinking about putting something into the marine environment, particularly, which we would work on marine renewable energy a lot, so offshore wind, wave and tidal, you really have to think about, well, what what impact is that going to have on the ecosystem and on the, you know, animals that use that area as their home. So we have a team of marine ecologists who work on, you know, seals. So one of our marine ecologists, Cian, is doing extensive research around, I suppose, seal populations and how they interact with fisheries, and how, you know, we have certain areas which are really important for seal breeding grounds and so on, and what impact does it have if we have a lot of commercial fishing boats or even small fishing boats in that area. So, you know, those type of studies where we're working directly with the fishermen or the fishing bodies, or if we're thinking of putting something in like a large scale wind turbine out at sea, you know, what could the implications be for the bird life in that area? What could it be for, you know, can it give a positive attribution? Like, for example, could an artificial reef be built around that, which would be, you know, nursery grounds, or would be helpful for some species? And so as well as that, then it's looking, you know, at the marine law aspect. You know, marine planning is a really important area that's been neglected, I think, you know, in Ireland over the years. So marine spatial planning is where you've all these stakeholders coming together and they're trying to address, you know, coordinated decisions about ocean use. And for me, that's the beauty of the work that we do. It's the fact that, as I say, we're kind of bringing together all these people and trying to find solutions that work for everybody, including the animals and the ecosystems.
This is a question for all of you. Everybody wants the same thing through different ways. They want to improve the environment, but everybody's got coming from different places. They are different types of stakeholder. Have you, in your work, had to manage the conflict between you and another person who means well? You won't want the same end goal. You go about it different ways. You have different coming at it from different points of view. How does that work in the work that you've done so far, and can we learn anything from that in future?
Yeah, I would just say, I think for me, in the progression towards more community-based work, I suppose, and as I said, that kind of engagement and engaged research, I sometimes realize that the kind of idealism that's maybe within particularly, you know, new community groups, and that it can be difficult to kind of marry that with some of the realities that are there, you know. I suppose, like, how I think practical examples, like sometimes I think that people can confuse issues and make them more simplistic, like that, oh, if we tackle the plastic issue, that's really going to have a big impact on climate change, or, you know, if we just install a wind turbine, then that will solve our energy issues. You know, I suppose sometimes the complexity of the situation, it can be difficult to get across to people, and that can occasionally cause some, not necessarily conflict, but just a difference in understanding of maybe what's achievable. Like, for example, in energy, one of the things I try to get across to people is, you know, electricity only accounts for about 20% of our energy use. You know, our real energy problems are heat and transport, which are much harder to decarbonize, for example. So it's those kind of, I suppose, complexities that I can sometimes feel can bring not necessarily conflict, as I said, but certainly issues that need to be discussed and trashed out and understood by parties, you know, who are trying to work together, coming from different angles.
Finally, a question for all of you. It's a tough game trying to help save the planet. What gives you hope in the face of such bad news? Aoife Deane, what gives you hope? Is it some of the exciting technological impacts and developments that you're seeing down at the MaREI Institute?
Definitely from a technical point of view, seeing the progression of, as I mentioned, offshore wind and wave, those technologies, and the work that we're doing around bioenergy, I see huge hope as well, particularly, you know, on things like farms where we can look at a circular economy approach, things like synthetic gas rather than, you know, the natural gas that we're currently on, and the plans even of big companies like Bord Gáis and ESB networks moving towards more sustainable models and greening the grass grid, as we call it. So we have high hopes of running buses throughout the country on biogas and other transport mechanisms like that. Probably what gives me the most hope is that collective impact of individuals working together, and that then is filtering out into communities and into society. And as I mentioned again, that piece of so many different parts of society working together now to have that greater impact. And I think from our work, I start to see that people are thinking about the bigger picture of how we live, so it's not just looking at one issue. It's like how we live, how we transport ourselves, how we eat, how we shop, how we consume as individuals and then as communities and societies. And this is allowing us, I suppose, to think maybe differently about our future. So certainly I'm very hopeful about the future, both for on land and in the ocean.